I think a lot of people don't even realize how disconnected they've become from themselves. They're functioning. They're performing. They're showing up. They're smiling in the meetings. They're getting the work done. Overall, they're handling their responsibilities, but inside, they're drained. And somewhere along the way, we started believing that stress means importance, that burnout means ambition, and exhaustion means commitment. Like, if you're calm, you must not be working hard enough. And I think a lot of people are quietly losing themselves trying to survive modern life, even leaders, especially leaders. But what if we got this backwards? What if joy isn't something you earn after the grind? What if joy is actually part of the whole strategy? That's what we're going to talk about today, and how, right now. Welcome to another episode of the Leading Life Podcast, where we talk practical wisdom for leadership and life. I'm your host, Andy Zook, and I've learned that leadership is about how we show up for people, how we navigate change, and how we continue growing. Right now on today's episode, should joy be strategic? And we're going to talk about why. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leading Life Podcast, where we talk about leadership, growth, mindset, and navigating life with wisdom. As I promised you, always no fluff, no empty motivational nonsense, just real-world ideas and practical tools to help you show up as your best self in work and in life. I'm your host, Andy Zook, and today we're going to talk about something that most people completely underestimate, and that's joy. And I want to take you through 5 shifts to better embrace joy in your life as a leader, for the people working for you, and just for your life in general. If you ever have the chance to check out Julia Louis-Dreyfus' podcast, it's called Wiser Than Me. She really starts with some really striking stories before she digs into things with her guests. And especially a lot of it is about what it's like to be a woman, in the industry and acting and Hollywood and all that, and all the things that she faced along the way. But I remember one episode one day, and she was talking about a story when they were filming Veep together, that show that she had done after Seinfeld. And she just remembers laughing so much with her co-star, Tony Hale, like laughing, working hard, rehearsing to get it right. And she referred to it as joyful teamwork. I love that. I never forgot that. And so that's what we're talking about today, the power of joy, the joy in our life, the joy in our teams. No fake positivity, not pretending life is perfect, but grounded joy. And that means presence, connection, energy, emotional sustainability. Because I honestly believe that a lot of people are trying to discipline themselves into a better life. And while that's good, what they're really missing out on is emotional oxygen. That sounds a little buzzword, right? But you know what? After decades of leadership myself, I've noticed something. The people who lasted the longest, the people who built the strongest cultures, and the people who genuinely we wanted to follow are not the loudest ones in the room. They're not the most aggressive. They're not the ones with all the answers. They're not the most intense. They're not the most intimidating. A lot of times they're just the calmest, the most grounded, the most emotionally present. And I think modern culture has confused pressure with importance. This whole hustle culture has gotten really out of control. We glorify burnout. We almost wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. And people say things like, God, man, I'm slammed, or I'm exhausted. I'm so overwhelmed right now. I mean, I remember saying that a lot when I was at work. They think somehow saying that proves value. But burned out people don't lead well for very long. Disconnected people don't create connection, and exhausted leaders eventually stop inspiring others. I've seen it in our corporations. I've seen it in relationships, and I've seen it in families. And honestly, I've seen it in moments of myself. If we're not careful, life slowly becomes maintenance instead of meaning. We stop feeling alive and we stop noticing things. We stop laughing deeply. We stop being fully present. We stop appreciating people, and we become efficient but emotionally unavailable. That's the real danger here, because leadership is not about productivity. It's about energy transfer. People feel you. Leadership is your tone, your patience, your presence, your emotional state, because that becomes the environment around you. Here's the first shift I want you to make. Remember this: your energy creates the environment. One of the biggest leadership lessons I've learned is your internal state is not private. It spreads. If you walk into every room frustrated, or you're overly reactive, or you're negative, you get distracted too easily, or you're impatient, people feel it. Your family feels it. Your team feels it. Your partner feels it. And the opposite is true too, because grounded energy spreads. Calm spreads. Your presence will spread. You know, the older I get, the more I realize people rarely remember every word you said, but they absolutely remember how they felt around you. That's real leadership. Not the titles and the status, not sounding important in the meetings, but true presence. So that's shift one. Remember, your energy creates the environment. The second shift is burnout is not leadership. Somewhere along the way, like we said, we started romanticizing exhaustion. You got to hustle when you get up at 6, hustle all day at work. When you get home at 5, you got to work on your second, your third business. It's like being emotionally fried somehow proves dedication. Well, let me tell you, it doesn't. It just proves unsustainability. The best leaders don't last because they grind harder. They last because they manage their energy way better. And let me say something that might sound controversial. Some people are addicted to chaos because chaos makes them feel important. We've all had bosses like that. We've all seen leaders do that kind of thing. But calm people often make better decisions. Calm leaders communicate more clearly. Calm leaders create psychological safety, and they think before they react. That's not weakness. That's mastery. And joy actually sharpens performance. Because when your nervous system isn't constantly overloaded, you think more clearly, you solve problems better, and you become more patient. And that's going to lead to you being more creative, more resilient. God, that matters more than anything. So the second shift is remembering burnout is not leadership. You got to take care of yourself through the process and bring out the joy in what you are doing instead of focusing on working yourself into burnout. Shift 3, small daily behaviors will shape culture. Yeah, we overestimate huge moments and we underestimate daily behaviors. Just the small steps. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one small step, right? Culture is not built in mission statements. It's built in moments. It's holding the door, making eye contact, listening fully, checking in on someone, being patient under stress, following up, and remember someone's struggle. That's leadership. People don't experience your values through speeches. They experience them through repeated behavior. And honestly, small emotional habits shape entire lives. Your reactions, your tone, and your consistency. That becomes your identity over time. So, shift 3, small daily behaviors shape your culture. Here's the fourth shift I want you to keep in mind. Human connection is the real work. I think this is where many leaders get lost. They think productivity is the work, but connection is the real work, because connected people collaborate better, they stay stronger, they trust deeper, they give more effort. And here's another truth I want to hit you with. You don't change people through constant arguments and conflict. You change people through presence, through consistency, through emotional steadiness, and through your own shared humanity. The older I get, the less impressed I am by people trying to dominate rooms. I am more impressed by the people who make others feel seen. The best leaders I ever had always made me feel seen. And honestly, that's rare in this world. Care is a competitive advantage. Care stands out because the world has enough ego already. I was overseeing 10 stores for a couple months as part of a project in my growth in my company. And one of the managers in South Florida, his wife had gone through cancer. And I think she was currently like on the other side of it, but still going through a lot of stuff. And I would call his store every week for reports. But before I said anything about business or asked for reports, I said, hey, how is your wife doing? And we spent the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the call just talking about that. And you know what? I know it meant the world to him because he'd had other bosses. They never asked anything. They never even cared. Remember, human connection is the real work. All right, and here's the fifth shift that I want you to make. Remember, joy sustains discipline. So let's bring this all together. I believe discipline is incredibly important. Structure matters, consistency and standards matter, but joy is what sustains it. Without joy, eventually even strong routines crack because human beings are not machines. We need that connection, the meaning, the laughter, the gratitude, the presence. And I think a lot of people are waiting to feel joy someday instead of building it intentionally right now, not through massive life changes, but through small daily decisions. And I know I talk about working out at the gym on here all the time, but it's a huge part of my joy. I never get to the gym like, oh man, I got to go do this now. And some days I do even walk in like, well, maybe I won't go all in, but then I remember why I came. And this is one part of my day that's critical, and I get into this zone. I know that sounds super cliche. I put on my favorite music in my headphone, and I push myself hard. I find myself in such a better place. There's a joy in the whole experience of working out and seeing my gym buddies, male and female, fist pump. Let's get it. We go all in. And I know I'm pushing myself and joyful about it because I'm getting to a better place of self-improvement. But through daily decisions, protecting your peace, being fully present with your spouse, going for a walk, laughing more, putting the phone down, creating moments that actually feel alive, that matters more than people realize. So let's talk a little bit about the psychology behind this, the neurology. What's happening in our brain? Well, chronic stress changes the brain. When people stay stuck in survival mode too long, they become merely reactive. They become more defensive. But positive emotional states increase cognitive flexibility, meaning that people literally think better when they feel safer and they feel more grounded. Watch their creativity improve, their patience improve, and their problem-solving abilities become stronger. The brain performs differently in fear than it does in safety. That's why emotional regulation matters so much in leadership, because regulated leaders create regulated environments, and chaotic leaders just create chaos. Here is your leadership edge for this episode. I want you to think about this. Discipline may be the structure of your life, but joy and finding the joy in the little things in your life is what keeps it alive. Eventually, people stop following exhausted energy. They start following grounded energy, present energy, steady energy. And the leaders who sustain greatness the longest are usually the ones who learned how to stay human while carrying responsibility. And so, as always, I want to leave you with a couple reflection questions. These might be really good to journal about. Number one, what kind of energy do people experience when they experience me? That's a great question. What kind of energy do people experience when they experience me? Number two, have I been treating joy like a reward instead of a necessity? And lastly, what would change in my life if I focused on becoming more grounded instead of just more productive? Yeah, take some time to sit with those and write down your first response. Write it down. See what comes to mind, because that's where the work is. That's where you can make a change and find more joy in your life. And here's your call to action for this episode. Share it with somebody who's been carrying too much pressure. Yeah, somebody trying to lead, somebody trying to provide for their family, somebody trying to build a career or a business. Because better energy creates better homes, better teams, and better lives. And remember, you don't change your life in one massive move. You change it through hundreds of small, intentional decisions repeated over time. Seek the joy within those decisions. So a couple key points to remember, like we talked about. The 5 shifts that will help you change and find more joy in what you're doing is your energy creates the environment. Burnout is not leadership. Small daily behaviors will shape your culture, and human connection is the real work. And lastly, joy sustains the discipline. Leadership is not about what you accomplish. It's about what people feel around you. So be the calm in the chaotic rooms, be that grounded presence, and be that energy that people remember. All right, so that is my episode for today. And if this gave you practical leadership insight, share it with someone building a team or growing their influence. If it made a positive impact on you, I would truly appreciate a quick rating or review on whatever platform you hear me on, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up next on the Leading Life Podcast. This isn't where we talk about leadership, it's where we live it. I'm Andy Zook, and I want you to lead on with purpose, live with intention, and keep becoming who you were meant to be, but most importantly, go out today and be the hero in somebody's story. All right, I'll talk to you on the next episode. Find the joy in what you're doing. Have an awesome day. Take care. Bye.